Okay, so let's talk about JavaScript some more. Now I put here, I'm going to go into the book here just a little bit to review again this two-tier called the client-server system again, so we understand what it is, why it's important, and what role it plays, or I guess what role JavaScript plays in this two-tier system. So I explained a little bit last time that a client doesn't have to be a separate system. It could be the same system. A client usually just, you can think of it as a browser. Okay, your browser, anything that works on the browser is a client. All right. He's like in trouble now. No worries. And then the server side could be a physical system or just a software, right? The server is really just a software. So on your machine, you have a server that you can create, and if you're using WebStorm like I use, it creates a server automatically for us to run. Okay, so basically that's how web servers work. So on the client side, you have a request coming to the server side. The server responds by sending a response back to the client. And so JavaScript initially, not true anymore, but it still is a big part of it, is acting only on the client side, so on the browser basically. So in this class, we're talking about only web browsers. Again, initially JavaScript was created to work on a browser. Not anymore also. It's used in many contexts as well, especially not just web page or web development, but also in game development as well. So game engines also built on that as well. But yeah, it still has a really big influence on the client side on the browser. So that means it controls the browser and it talks to the browser. It does not talk to the server in this class. We're not going to go into the server side unless you go into Web 2, where we learn Node.js. Then that is where JavaScript can also talk to the server and on the browser at the same time. So then one thing here about there's a three-tier system. So we have two-tier, three-tier, and a three-tier is basically we have a data storage, right? Data store is just a database system. So that's part of what we call the back end. So every time you hear the word back end, it always refers to the server side. Includes both the web server and a database system. Okay, and there are some languages that will only work on the back end, like PHP, for example, only works on the back end, or Java or ASP.NET. Those languages work on the back end, even Python. On the client side, you have JavaScript. That means the back end languages do not talk to the front end, right? So they don't communicate with the browser. They can, produce code that can be rendered by the browser, HTML code, but it does not interact with the browser. So in the end, you still need JavaScript to perform the interaction on the browser side, on the client side, like animations and interacting with the interfaces on the browser. So you still need both of those. And so again, just one more thing about JavaScript is I want to talk about the scripting here. Okay, so the word scripting here, it's a scripting language, and also there's another term used here is a interpreted language versus a compiled language. Okay, so the interpreted language is a language that runs on the browser, in this case, or another program or another system that outputs the data or the result immediately. Okay, it does not need to compile into a executable file and then run that executable file separately. So if you have taken like Java or C# or one of those languages, what they'll do is they'll use the source code, convert it into an intermediate language code called bytecode, and then it could do another conversion to the binary language or the binary file. And out of that you have another separate file called, in Windows, is .exe file. It's an executable file. If it's Java, it will be the .class file. So you have these separate class files versus your original source files. That's the compiled language. The scripting language or the interpreted language is you don't have that separate file. It's the same file, the same source file you usually run, And every time when you run the browser, when you load that page, all your script will be interpreted again, get compiled again, run again, and then execute and produce the result instantly at that time. Okay, so every time. So if your file is really, really big, really long, it's going to compile everything and then run on the browser. So in that sense, it's much slower than something that is already compiled. Okay, and the good thing is that you always get something fresh. It's always fresh, and it's usually it's much slower because it needs to, parse every time. So JavaScript is interpreted with a scripting language. PHP is also a scripting language, even though it's a server-side language. It doesn't mean that scripting is always on the client side. It's not true. Okay, so JavaScript is a scripting language. That means it runs directly on the browser, and you don't need to do any special inclusion or anything like that. It just comes with it already by default. So one more thing about keywords. I think it's on page like maybe 34. Yeah, I'm good. 34, yes. So these are the keywords used in JavaScript. There are about, and yes, Cody counted about like 61 of them, or about 60 or 50 or so. Yeah, about 60 or 61 keywords that are used in JavaScript. Okay, so that means you cannot use these as function names or variable names or things like that. Okay, they are part of the keyword. And so let's go and do some coding. Okay, we learned about the write statement last time. I'm going to go and open my WebStorm IDE, and we're going to continue writing that code a little bit, and then we'll dive into inserting scripts in different places in the document, and then we'll see how JavaScript can be used to manipulate your web page. We call that manipulating the DOM. Okay, the DOM is the document object model, which is the it's like a tree or the physical representation of a web document, a web page. It's always called the DOM. So last time we learned how to use the write function and the write line or write len function. And these two functions here produce the same result on the browser, but the difference here is the write versus the ln for write len with the line break. And you don't see that on the result on the browser side, but you see that in the code view. Right? You do a source code view, use the actual code, or if you run the console, you see that as well. Now, we haven't explored a lot with this IDE yet. If you're using WebStorm, if you're using different IDEs, it's different. But like VSC for Visual Studio Code, for those of you who are using that IDE, there is a terminal built into that IDE, and this one has it too. So if you look down here at the bottom, there's a link or button called Terminal. If you click that terminal, you see that it looks very similar to the command prompt. Okay, this is part of the Visual, WebStorm. This is similar to the command line down here if you type in like CMD, right? It's kind of similar, except this is part of the default Microsoft OS system. This is built into the IDE itself. So sometimes you can go here back and forth and run scripts, run your code, especially if you, if you take like Web2 or if you take Angular or React and all those other frameworks. Usually, most of the time, you're switching back and forth between your code and the terminal because you can write code here, output to the terminal down here, and you see the result right away. And PHP also has a terminal as well, and you can spit code into PHP. But this is just another way to see your files in here. This is the visual view of your code. In here, it's just DOS, right? Kind of like DOS. You do it dir, you see that this is the actual file I have inside here. Same thing. We may not use this terminal as much, but I'm just going to show you that if they ask for a terminal inside the IDE, this is where it is. Okay. All right. So the document write I mentioned last time that wherever you put this line in your web page, it's going to render in that exact location, okay, from top to bottom, because you're going to write it right there. So you see that I'm actually mixing JavaScript code with HTML. Okay, so that means I can even put this statement right between here if I want to. Okay, this is a HTML text. I can insert a piece of script in here. So instead of the word JavaScript, I can put it here, or I can put the word to like that, and I can do something like script. See, that's a script, right? I can do a document, right, and then the word welcome to, and put dot dot dot, and it will print that word to here, and then append the word JavaScript to that word to. So you can see you can embed code in and out of your web document. And if I were to run this again in the browser, and hopefully it loads, you see that the word to is shown up here seamlessly. It's just like it's a part of the web document. So wherever you put that right statement, it's going to print it right there. between words, between characters, it doesn't matter. That's the advantage of that document, and also a disadvantage, because sometimes you don't want that to be written there. You want to be written elsewhere, but you want to inject that word or that text or that image, whatever it is, that content, to a certain place. And we'll do that by manipulating the DOM. Okay. So again, if you just see the browser, it doesn't matter which function you use, the right or the right len, it's the same thing. The difference is, again, it just depends on the source view. If you do a source view here, you see so the source view does not show you the output, because it's a what's called, this is the physical DOM, right? The actual code is the physical DOM. Now the F12 key, like last time we did, you press F12 or you do a right click and do inspect. Okay, you see this screen here. This is called the virtual DOM, because it's virtual. It's not the physical DOM, physical structure, right? You can manipulate the physical structure by creating this virtual structure here. But you see that in my script, this is the actual script. This is the actual script. But the output you see is different from my script. So just want to point that out here. And I think I lost the... did I lose something? Okay, just a second. I just share. Back to this scenario again. Remember this from last semester. All right, go. Okay. Okay, so we got the document write function taken care of. And then the next thing is JavaScript can be written. We can inject, we can put JavaScript in pretty much anywhere in your code, in your page. Two most common places are usually at the top and the head section, or at the bottom of the page, right down here, right below the end of the body tag down here. And the reason why you do that is because a document is rendered from top to bottom, right? As loads from top to bottom. Any script tag you have in here, any tag you have here will be rendered by the engine. And if you have a JavaScript file up here somewhere, or JavaScript code, it's going to run all those code until all those are done, and it will move down the line until the end of this document. And if you put your code on the top here, if your code happens to have a bug, if it's buggy, or if it takes a lot of time to load because maybe it's do some type of calculation or accessing data from another server or another site, then it can cause your page to hang. And when that happens, then the user gets annoyed and they'll just click away, right? So you don't want to do that. If you want to put your code on top, just make sure your code is fully tested and it's fast and it doesn't cause the page to hang, then that's fine. Okay. Otherwise, you want to put your code at the bottom so that by the time everything here is already loaded, your content is there, at least your user or the viewers see something on the page and they will stay there so they understand what's going on. But if you put on the top, because JavaScript, as you know, is a single-threaded language. That means there's only one head that runs the entire code, right? There's only one person running the entire code, and if there's a piece of code that it hangs or something like that, it stops there, and nothing gets run until the thing is cleared. Okay, and to resolve that, there are other ways to do it by using like asynchronous function code or we use Ajax. We learn that later. To prevent that from hanging, but so far JavaScript is what's called a single-threaded language, versus something like Java is a multi-threaded language. You can write multiprocessors to process your code. Here, just one. So be really careful. Okay, so you see that I put JavaScript code inside the script tag. It must be nested inside the script tag, okay, included in there. So everywhere you put it, you can have multiple script tags, right? Here, there's one here, and then I have a couple here, and I can add more down here if I want. Because I'm using the document write, the write function, it will write exactly in that same order. Now, at the top here, so usually your scripts go on the very top. I put one here. It's in the head section because usually JavaScripts are just scripts, and they are not visible to the browser, right? Anything that is not visible are usually put in the head area, like meta tags, titles, and descriptions, and keywords, and style sheets. All those are not visible to the browser, to the viewer. So the head is for the non-visible, the body is for the visible content, like text, video, audio, graphics, and so on. Okay, so you see that most pages, most sites will not have scripts inside your document, the body of the document. Mostly there'll be an external file, and you will basically just link that in or import that into your web document. So you separate all your script into their own environment, your HTML in its own environment, and so on. Okay? And that is the ideal way to do it. So separate your code. It's called separate of concerns, kind of like the object or the MVC paradigm. So the idea is now you don't want JavaScript to be too obtrusive on the web document. Okay. As less as possible. Okay, so you can put your script here. You put some here in the body, and you can put way down here at the bottom. And not just because all your scripts should go on the bottom. They don't have to if you know how to code it correctly and make sure your scripts are saved. And they can also go on the top. And the reason why you put on the bottom is, I mentioned it earlier, is might cause a hanging. Another reason is because sometimes your code needs to interact with a tag in your document. That means in order for that to work, all these tags must be already rendered on the browser, on the DOM tree. If it's not rendered, then your script will not find it because I'll show you in a minute how we can do that. The script will target an existing tag, like H1 or the P tag or an image tag, and do something with those elements. So when you start to manipulate elements in your document, you want to make sure your script is in the right place. Okay? Otherwise, it would say, I cannot find the P tag. Okay? And then you have an error. And in that case, it's always safe to put on the bottom. But it's just a matter of preference nowadays. Because, for me, I don't like to put my code on the bottom. I put on the top. It's just easier to see it. But certain situations, you put on the bottom. Okay, so that's where you put your scripts. Another thing is that this document called index here has it's just a one file. That means from line 1 all the way down to the end of line 30. All this is called a one namespace. Right? Namespace is just one space, like a global space in this case. is global, meaning if I put my script here, this part of the script can also access whatever I put up here, like especially variable names. Okay, and same thing down here. It doesn't mean that whatever I put this script only contain within that script. It is not. It's open to the entire page. So if I write a function, we'll do that in chapter 2. I put a function down here at the bottom of the page. I can still access it from anywhere in this document because it's in the same space. Okay, so the namespace is really important. It's also important later on when we, towards the end of the night, we'll learn about variables and the variable scope, meaning where do they exist and how they existed and how do you use different variable and different scope. That's also important. Okay, so we got that here. Okay, so are there any questions so far? I mean, about why we place scripts here and then, or about the right document or the right function. So far, so good, right? It's pretty basic.
But even though it's a global space, if you're trying to access like the paragraph tag, you still have to put it at the bottom.
Yes, if you want to access the paragraph, yeah. So if you put it at the top, that means the paragraph hasn't been rendered yet, so you won't find it, right? So it's safe to put on the bottom, unless you write the code to stall it, to say wait until the DOM is rendered and then go ahead and then process it. So it's like you put it at the bottom, but you do it in a different way. Yeah. Okay, so let's go and I guess we can start talking about variable for now. I mean, it's kind of hard to not just teach but also learn without using variables, okay? Because variable is really important in any language. A variable, so what's a variable? We all know that, I guess. What's a variable? Anybody want to tell us what it is?
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Something that holds it else.
Yeah. So it's just a placeholder, right? So it's a placeholder that points to a memory address in RAM, okay, that stores some data. And JavaScript is a loosely typed language, so that means it can store any data type, okay? Whereas other languages like Java, you have to declare the type, but JavaScript doesn't really care. Now, again, this is when I write the script here, this is the global space. So if I put my script here in line 7, because that's the only script tag, the first script tag, that's the first line of JavaScript in this page, okay? So if I do a variable, and variable you can use in JavaScript, the word var for variable. You can use that var in front of it just to identify, to denote that that's a variable in the name of a variable, like, for example, message. And you terminate each statement with a semicolon. It is not required in this case. You don't have to use it, okay, but I highly recommend it. And there are certain situations that you have to use it. Okay, but in JavaScript, it is not required. But so I can do that without it, and most languages use it anyway. Besides Python, I guess it's good to use it. Okay, one reason why is because, for example, I have another variable called age. Okay, because you see that I use 2 lines of code here. If I happen to put that here like that on a single line, right, that's a valid statement. I have 2 separate variables. Each is declared with the word var, so that's valid. It's because it's separated by this semicolon here. If I take that out, you see that that's an error, right? That's an error. So in cases like this, if you want to put 2 or more lines together in the same line, and each statement I have 2 statements here, then it's required to have a semicolon here. Okay? To tell the engine that this is one statement, this is a separate statement, it's on the same line. And it's valid this way. And if you look at jQuery, those minified versions, you see that it's a long string of code all separated by semicolons like this. And there's one more thing. Sorry, this is also now stopped. I didn't have this issue last week. All right. Okay, so I declared two variables. Again, it's not ideal to do this way. I'm just saying you can. But in this case, you need a semicolon. So it's always safe to use it. So I used the word var here. I used to use the word var here as well. For ES6, you can also use the word let instead of the word var. Okay, they all declare variables. Or you can use it without any one of those. You can say pi. Right? I capitalized pi because I want to use that as a constant. Well, maybe just put something really meaningful. We'll just call it score. You can see that all those three are kind of weird, but these are all variables in JavaScript. So the word var, let, and without any of the var or the let. So I declare three variables. Here they are not assigned any values, though, so they can't be used because there's no data assigned to it. So usually when you declare a variable like this, you assign data to it either immediately or afterwards. Okay, so let's just say that I want to assign a message to the variable message here, and you assign by setting equal sign to a string of text. So you can say, welcome to JavaScript. That's the message, right? It's a string. You wrap the string with either a pair of single quotes or double quotes. Either one is fine. And age, we can say, 25. Wish I was, but not anymore. And score, we could put 100%. Say on a test, for example. So I have three variables, one called message, one called age, one called score. And we'll talk about data types next week. But for now, I just want to focus on variables. So each of those, because right now, we are in the global space, right? There's no function yet. We haven't learned function yet until next week. So all these will be accessible in this entire document. So once I declare these variables up here, I can access them anywhere down here in the code, in the body. So that means, like right here, this H1 message, welcome to JavaScript. I can replace all of these. Let's delete all that. And we can put the script back in there. You can use the multiple line. Put a script here. Inside the script, I put a document write. I'm going to write the message here. This message variable, I can put it right here. Put a semicolon. So now I can, when I render this on the browser, it's going to print this text to the browser. It's wrapped inside an H1 tag. And then later on, if I want to change the message, I'll just change whatever is up here. So I don't have to mess up with my code down here. It's all set, right? It's nicely written and set already. So I just change one place, and then everywhere else can be changed. So the reason why I use the variable is because I can reuse this again. Instead of typing this 10 times, I just use the message 10 places, and then if I change one place, it changes everywhere else, right? That's the power of a variable. And you should use variable as many as you can, as possible, because for that reason. Try not to use a lot of string or text literal like this. This is for just introduction purposes, but later on when you write code, you want to put all these into variables. So let's just say the next one down here, instead of JavaScript is fun, let's put the 25 here. So let's just say I can put here, I am, and then I want to say I'm 25 years old, right? And I'll show you here one more thing that you can join two strings together. We'll do this later on, but I'll show you here anyway. I want to say I am 25, so I'm 25 years old. this is the text I want to print, but the number 25 is going to be set to whatever I put up here, this age variable name. If I change that number, it's going to reflect it automatically down here. So I'm changing. So that's the only place that will be different. So you can join two strings together. So something like, you can do this. You can say I am, and then you can close that. This is the long way to do it. Document. Oops. Right, and then you put the age in here, right? As you can see, you can write three separate lines, and then document, and then space years old. Okay, so all those three statements will print the message I showed you earlier. I am 25 years old on a single line. And so for now, let's just save this and go back to the browser and refresh my browser. So this is the one, and I'm going to refresh it. Hopefully it still loads. Yeah, so here it is. This is the message. Welcome to JavaScript. It says I am 25 years old. Because I did not put a line break, continues on to the next line. And let's see. Let's just say for now I'm going to remove that. Well, yeah. So after the yes oh, I'm going to put a line break. Again, you have to put the BR with it, so it'll be rendered on the browser. If you don't, the browser doesn't know that. So you, as a programmer, it's your job to make sure that works. Little things like that can either, keep or lose your customer. So you can see that I'm 25 years old, and it looks just like that, using 3 statements. It's a lot of work, right? So the neat thing about this is that, so now, if I want to change that 25 to something different other than 25, I would just change the data up here. Instead of 25, maybe I'm now 55. Change it to 55. And my code down here will stay unchanged. And I refresh my page, I'll see that, and I'll change to 55, right? So that's how a variable works. You can use it and reuse it again and again in your code. And that's the beauty of variables. And you can do the same thing with score. I can say, I score 100% on that test. So you can do that. So these 3 statements here, the reason why I do this way, because this is a variable, these are not. These are just strings. So therefore I use inside the double quotes here. Now, if it's a variable, you cannot put inside double quote like this. If you do that, it's going to treat this just the word age, right? It does not know it's a variable. And your IDE tells you the color changes from purple to green. So green, in this case, we just text. So if I use that in this sense, then I'll see the word age in here instead of the actual text interpolation. Okay? So there are other ways to do it, but for now, so any variable you want to print to the browser, don't wrap it with any quotes. You have to stand by themselves like that without any quotation marks around it. With quotation marks, it's going to treat that as a regular text. And so that's why I have to use 3 statements to print that out. Now in JavaScript, you can combine them together using like a strings, you combine with a number, and then combine with the strings again, and with other data. So instead of doing 3 lines, you could use this way. Say, I am, and then you close the quote. That means I'm back to the script mode, JavaScript mode, and then put the plus here. The plus means to join, concatenate, okay, and join the age variable, and then plus back to this string here. Okay, so you can copy that, put it here. So this line produces the same result I showed you earlier, those 3 lines. So that means I don't need these 2 lines here. So I am, and then age. So remember you close the string, and then to a variable, it will interpolate that, right? Convert that to the actual number, and then plus back to the string again. So you're joining 3 strings together in this case. And so let me turn this off. Now in JavaScript, to turn them off, to comment, it just basically you can do it in a couple of ways. You can use a pair of forward slashes like this, 2 forward slashes to do a comment. Comment means you turn that off, so that when the render interpreter comes, it will just ignore anything that is prepended with a pair of 2 slashes. It will not be rendered on the browser. So, and I put the exclamation mark to make sure it really works. So save that. And then now if I render it, refresh it, you see that it still works just fine. Okay? So that's how you join 2 or more strings together using the plus sign here. So the plus sign here is not, in this context, it's not the same as you adding numbers. It's also the same operator used as well. We'll learn that next week. But to join strings is the plus sign. In Java, it's the same. PHP is different. PHP is the dot. Any questions? All right, so we learned how to set variables. Again, notice that I put inside the script tag on the top. I can still access them down here in different places because it's in the same document, the same namespace, okay, same area space. If it were to strip off everything, there is the same, the code is in the same place. So something about variables. So notice here again I use the word var, let, and one is without. Okay, there is a difference between the 3. This one here, without anything in front, I'll put a comment here so you can see. This is a global variable. Okay, I'll put it here as global scope. The word scope here means visibility, right? Where is it visible in your script? So if you put anything that has without a variable without the word var or let, once you run this line 10, once this score is executed, that means it's going to be pulled out or hoisted out of this code, wherever it is, out to the global space. And it's going to be always available in the entire document. Okay, so that is a global variable. And it will persist throughout the entire document. That means it's going to consume memory. Okay, it will consume memory, RAMs, and so on. So you don't want to use that a lot. The next one is the var. Use the var first. This one, I'm going to put on top here so you can see. This is a what we call a local, not local. It's not local. It is local, but yeah, it is local variable, but has what's called a function. I guess called a function scope or something. Okay, it's scoped to a function. If there's no function like this, then in this case, all of these are available in the global space because there's nothing to contain them. It's a local variable. It is not global because global means available everywhere else. Okay, the var, if you put that inside a function, that only exists inside the function. So it is a local variable inside a function, but it's inside the function. It will be hoisted out of a block scope to a function scope. So it has a function scope. You know, it doesn't make sense here, but no. Okay. Yeah, I'll explain later. So this one here, the let, this is really a local variable. Local has what's called a block scope. Okay, so block scope, and that means it's local. It only exists within a block of code. A block of code in JavaScript is anything that is wrapped with a curly brace, like this. If I wrap that inside that curly brace, if I put that inside here, okay, that's called a local block scope. It's only existed within this block. It contains it inside here, and once I'm out of the block, it no longer exists. So because I put the block inside there, when I run it, that means the variable age doesn't exist down here. As you can see, it says unresolved. And we'll see if this is true, okay? So I'm going to save this. I wrap my age with the curly braces. I save it and go back to the browser and render my page. You see that something is wrong, right? The message is gone. And the rest is also gone. Why is that? And this is a very common in JavaScript. Now, I won't know why. It looks good to me. There's nothing there, right? Now, to see the error is you have to inspect it. Okay, you have to inspect the code. So again, press F12 or do it right-click and then inspect. And if you go to the console, and let's see if I refresh it again. Yeah, there's no error here still. Just to be safe, let me just run it one more time. Yeah, so it's not showing any errors here.
What about the
Yeah. I must have probably hidden, huh? Yeah, there's an error. It just doesn't show up here. Let's see. Show. Yeah, let's do the preserve log, and then let's try one more time. Yeah, I don't see it for some reason. It's not shown to me. Oh, there it is. Okay, I turned that off. It was off. So if you look at the console, and if you don't see it, just make sure the default level change it to default, and you see that it says age is not defined. And this file, line 30, this means line 30. Okay, so the age is not defined. Why? Because this line 30, this age is not defined. Because we change it to a block scope. Only exists within this block. Okay. Once you run that line 12, line 13, after line 14, this is removed from memory. It's gone. So it no longer exists. So that is only scoped to that local. If you change it to a var, then it's no problem. If you wrap this with var, same thing if I do that inside here, because var is not scoped to a block. It's scoped to a function. And because we don't have a function here, it's going to be hoisted out of this block scope to the global space, just like before. And because of that, we're able to print the message down here with no problem. Okay? So let's just put another exclamation mark or two here to show it does work. So if I save that, back to my browser, refresh it, I should see 2 exclamation marks added to that here. And again, the age is not defined. And because line 30 has an error, okay, that means all your JavaScript stop at that point. So line 30, if you click on this link here, it will load your page. It tells you exactly where it is. So line 30 stops here. So that means these statements are not run, because these are now errored out. So you don't see that in the JavaScript. But this is HTML, so that will run, but your script stops. Okay, so it's very sensitive in this scenario. Once an error is occurring in your script, the rest of your script is halted at that point. It won't render. And sometimes fixing one little thing can solve a lot of the rest of the problems. Okay, so this is a function scope. It's only a
global variables take more memory.
Hmm.
Less memory than block.
Well, the memory it consumes is the same, or depends on the data type. When I say consume more memory, means like if you have a lot of variables, like if I have 10 global variables, right, that will consume 10 times, and they will exist on your page until you close your browser. So once you set it, it exists until you shut down your browser. So if you have a lot, it grows, it consumes RAM. Whereas the let, it only consumes when this line is run. Once I'm out, it deletes it from memory. It no longer exists. That's why down here it cannot find it. So it's removed already. So
And that's just because you put it in the brackets. The
Yeah.
curly braces.
Yep.
If you had no curly braces, would all three be considered global?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all in global space. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, you can access them because they're all in the global space. But if you put into a function, then that'll be different. But if you put a function, then this will be inside the function. This will be in the block scope. This will be hoisted to the global space automatically. So it doesn't matter where you declare this. Once you run this line, it's moved out to the global space. So yeah, so that's the thing about global variable scope, and in JavaScript, it's a really, really different environment compared to others. Okay, so this is really like really weird. This room is weirder than the one in IMAT. So sorry about that, guys. Okay, so we will revisit this again next week when we learn functions. Okay, so when we learn functions, you understand how this works, and then how they work again. Because right now it doesn't do much yet until we learn functions. But I'm going to remove this out again so that it doesn't error on my page. So just so you know, this has a local block scope.
It does now, or it only does when there are curly braces?
Only when you put in curly braces, it's contained within the block. Yeah, but usually the word let here means the block scope. So if you think about this space here as a block, then it's still a block scope. Yeah. And this gets really tricky later on when we learn about loops. And if you use a for loop, you use the word let instead of the word var. It's different. You can have some issues there. So okay, so we learned about those variables, how to use them, and how they can be reused again. Again, JavaScript is a loosely typed language. That means these variables can be anything, can store any content. Right now, message, because the way I named it to be message, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a text, right? We understand, oh, message is a message. Because right down here, I can change my message to say something like, 5. Right? It's completely valid. And if I change it to 5, if I save that, because initially it was called this, now I change it to 5, and if I save it, I render my page, I just see letter 5. Okay? Because it's dynamically assigned. Whatever I assign to it is the data type at that instant, and then moving forward until it assigned again to something else. So when you write this kind of code, it's always safe to check to make sure the message is really a text, right, and not a string or no other type, in order to use it, especially in numbers. If age is 55 or score is 100, because I might change it, or somewhere else might have changed it accidentally to a string or something, and then you try to add the number, you get some really weird results. Okay, so you always want to check to make sure that it's the same data type, and I will show you that next week when we learn about data types. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is how to manipulate these elements here, and that is pretty much at the heart of JavaScript, is to be able to manipulate elements of the DOM. Use JavaScript to do that, to change content, to move elements around, to change colors, add animations, to respond to events. So JavaScript is an event-driven language. It responds to a lot of events, and the web browser or the HTML also has a lot of events built into it. So all the HTML elements in the HTML document has some events applied or tied to them. And not all of them have the exact same events, but most of them have almost the same type of events. Okay. So JavaScript applies to response to events. And some of the events you hear or probably will see all the time is like mouse events. Okay, you click on a button, click on a text, you highlight, or you move things around, you type something on a keyboard. All those are events. Even now we have mobile, so you have like pinch and swipe and touch, press. All these are events, can be accessed on the browser and then can be handled by JavaScript. Okay, so let's see. Right here we have the H1 document. Right, has a text called message. We print that out through this variable up here. I'm going to change this back to or was before the existing message. Okay, so now this H1 here, there's only one H1. So your JavaScript can manipulate any element in your document. So here we just have one H1. And so I'll put on the bottom here, so it'll work. That means by the time when the interpreter or the renderer gets to line 40 or 41, all the elements here, the script, the H1, and the body text have already been rendered. So down here, I can access the document, the entire document here, through the object called document. We've seen that already, right? Document up here, document. The document object is referring to this page here, okay, this document here, this HTML called index.html. There's another object that is above the document. It's called window. Okay, so window is the parent object that document is a part of. And then inside the document, we have the HTML. Okay, so what that means is, like, if you look at this page here, this window here, this tab, has the window object. Inside this window here, we have a web document. Okay, so inside the document, you have HTML and head and body and so on. So you have that tree going down. Okay, so you have to understand this big picture first. Inside the window document, you have some other objects besides the document. So the document is the HTML. You have some others like the navigator for navigations, and so on, and a few others as well. But mostly we'll just kind of cover the document here. So just kind of show you that really quick here. I'm going to go to the F12 and the console here. So when we do a document, so if I type like window here, type in window, type in dot, it will tell you these are all the functions or objects that are associated with the window. The window here, again, refers to this tab, this screen you see here. And there's a lot of them, right? But the one that will be interesting is the document object. The document here now refers to this page. You see is highlighted in blue here. If I type in the dot, again, you see that it has some other objects as well. You can have the location, which refers to the href location. You can get the URL of this page here. If I do that, it tells you the URL is the URL up here. right? You can get those information. If I type in the there's a lot more the color, the screen, window screen here, the height and width, all those stuff can be accessed from here. But one of the functions that you probably see a lot is the alert function. The alert function is actually, alert is not part of the argument. Sorry. So the alert function, and alert is just basically you're going to print a message to a pop-up window. Okay, so if I type window.alert, it's a function you pass in some data, a string. If you hit enter, you see a little pop-up window here that says hi. That message here is this message here, right? You see that all the time. You see all these pop-up windows, ads and things like that. That's what they do. Use the pop-up window alert to do that for you, and it's really annoying, right? And then once you do that, you cannot click anywhere else. You cannot exit until you close this window. It's in a modal state, a modal window, meaning it's locked in until you activate it. Okay, so the window.alert, and you see that sometimes you see in your other codes you don't have to put the word window, just type alert and then whatever that is, and it alerts the same thing. Okay, because we're already in the window area, you don't have to type the word window.alert. Just type alert and it's understood. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to clear the screen here. You can clear by clicking this icon here, or just type in clear, either way. Clear function. I'll just clear it. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is the one we did already. It's called a document. Document refers to this page here, and that means all these elements you see here in the element page here is referred to the document. So if I type document, if I hit enter, you see it has this object return with a pound sign in front. And if I click this arrow, it lists you all the elements you see here. This is our web document. This is called the DOM, okay, the DOM tree. So this is for the tree because it's a tree. You have the HTML, which is the parent, the root of all the HTML elements. And then inside the root, you have two major categories or sets, the head and the body. And that's it. There's no more others. Okay? So your HTML elements must be nested inside either the head or the body. Nowhere else. If you put it somewhere else, it's an error. And so this HTML is the parent element. And then we have the head as a child and the body as a child. Inside the head, if you expand that, you see the head tags and the other tags inside here. In the body, you have these as well. So that means if I want to see what's inside the head, I can do a document.head. And if I hit enter, it grabs all the elements inside the head. So you can see only that part, right? And same thing with body. If I do document.body, it returns all the elements inside the body tag. And then you might say, hey, what about the H1? This H1 here can just do like document.body, the H1, and then you say, can't do it, right? You can't do it because you might have more than one H1s. This is one body, one head. But you can have a lot of H1s, a lot of Ps, a lot of others, so you can't do it. Okay, so this is how you can use these document.body, whatever it is, to manipulate your web page. You can use JavaScript to do that. Okay, so after the break, we'll come back and we'll use the DOM, one of the functions that is widely used to manipulate HTML elements inside a JavaScript code. So you can use that. So let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll continue on.